going to be sharing with you how I made this box that I'm using to store my border strips. And I did post a video on my channel showing this box and kind of talking about organizing border strips, and I'll put the link to that video in the description below if you're interested in checking that out. But in this particular video, I'm going to be sharing with you how to make the actual box and also how to make the folders that I'm using inside the box. So what I used to make the box was cardstock, and I also used a set of these divider tabs from Cardinal. This is a one-step index system, and there's different versions of this. This particular one that I use for this box has 12 dividers, and the set looks like this. And you can pick these up on Amazon, probably Office Depot and Staples and other office supply stores. And I will leave a link in the description below if you're interested in getting that. But I just happened to have these in my office. They were left over from when I used to do training projects at work, and I just had a couple of sets of them, and I thought, well, I would try to use these to see if I could make something. And since I'm storing my border strips by color, it just made sense that I would maybe try to see if I could figure out a way to use these to make this box. Now for the box I'm going to be making today, I wanted to change the size of this box a little bit because I am storing this in my Alex drawer unit at the bottom in the last drawer, and these tabs are hitting the drawer above. And so I'm going to make the box 1/4 of an inch shorter, and I'm also going to make it a little bit wider. Right now it's 4 inches, and I'm going to make it about, I think, 5 3/4 inches. And just make it a little bit bigger this way, but I'm still going to keep the same width, which is 12.5 inches. So the dividers that I'm going to be using to make the new box today is actually this set of dividers, which only has 10 tabs. And the reason why I decided to do that was because I like the colors in these tabs a little bit better than this box. And originally I did this one because it had 12 and I thought I would need all 12 of the divider tabs. But what I found was that you could actually store multiple colors within the same tab. So for instance, I have here under this brown tab, I have a black folder, and then also my browns or neutrals. And so you don't necessarily have to just put one color per each one of the tabs. So I thought, well, I want to use this one that has 10 because I like the colors a little bit better. And it's in an order that more closely represents how I have my rainbow stored in my craft room. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at how we would build this box. Now, if you don't have this set of tab dividers, you could just use cardstock and make your own tabs, or just leave the tabs off. You don't necessarily have to have the tabs, because if you build the folders and you put washi tape on each folder, that kind of acts as, you know, a way to identify which color is in what tab. Okay, so I hope that made sense. All right. Okay, so I'm going to bring in my paper trimmer here, and we're going to take this first tab divider sheet. And the first thing I want to do is I want to trim off the side with the holes. And I want this to be, let's see my measurement. It's going to be 6 1/4 inches, including this tab. So we want to measure from the tab. So I'm just going to flip it upside down here. And I want it to be 6 1/4 inches. So I'm just going to trim this off. And then once we have that trimmed, we're going to be using this piece. Now, we have to make this longer because this sheet is only 8.5 by 11. And we want the box to be 12.5 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this divider and I'm going to glue it onto the end of the sheet. Now, you do have to pay attention to what side your tabs are on. You always want to add this to the bottom so that by the time you finish this entire project, your tabs will line up correctly. So this is the top of the page. I need to add this to the bottom down here. So I'm just going to take some glue and we're going to go ahead and just glue that together. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and just glue this onto this paper and let it dry. And just really going to extend the paper so that we have a full 12.5 inches. And the reason why I don't line it up with either end is because it's just easier just to glue it down, and then you can just take your paper trimmer and follow along here to trim this off, and then trim it to 12.5 and then trim this. So just kind of even it up with the paper trimmer. Makes it a little bit easier. So let's go ahead and just do that. Now I like to use the, instead of pushing this against the trimmer and cutting with that, you want to use the actual paper itself, because if you don't glue this on straight and you use that edge to cut, then you could end up with it being crooked. So that's one of the reasons why I like to use this particular paper trimmer, which is the Caterpillar Crop, because you can actually butt the paper up against the edge right here. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see if I can tilt it. But there's an edge right here. That's the edge it's going to cut on. So if I put the paper right up on that edge and line it up with the edge, then I know it's going to be even, and it'll cut that piece evenly. Okay, so once we do that, we're just going to open up the arm here, and going to go ahead and trim this down to 12.5 inches. And I could have probably, probably should have pushed it over a little bit, but it's okay. Nobody's actually going to see that anyway. So that'll be inside the box at the bottom of the box. So once you get this piece glued together and cut down, it should be 12.5 inches long by 6.25 inches tall, including the top of the tab. And it's 5.75 inches if you don't include the tab. So that's what size you need this to be. And what we're going to do next is we're just going to get a scoreboard, and we're going to score that. So I'm going to grab my scoreboard here, and we're going to just go ahead and score this. Now you do want to pay attention to what side you're doing this on, because you need to make sure that you have the edge that doesn't have the tab butted up to the left side over here. And then you're going to score this at 2 7/8. So 2 7/8. I hope I did this right. Okay, then we're just going to fold this, and that should be, you could also just fold it in half. Make sure this is lined up before I press it down. So that's just going to fold it in half there. Okay, so then once you get it folded, it should look like this. And you're going to do this for all 10 or 12 or however many dividers you have. They have these sets, I think I've seen them as many as 31, like for each day of the month. I've also seen them with the months like January through December. So they have different ones, but the ones that I have the numbers, so those are the ones I'm using. Okay, so and then these pieces are we're just gonna throw that away. Okay, so once you get all your dividers done, it's going to look like this. And as you can see here, this particular set of dividers looks a little bit different because it has these lines on the opposite side. So one side is plain, and on this side it has the lines. And so I just went ahead and folded all these and made sure that they were all lined up so that my tabs were all, going the right way. And then I didn't have any, because if you do it wrong, you could end up where you have one, going the wrong way, which would mean it would end up, in the wrong spot. So you do want to make sure that you have them all going in the right direction. Now I've already started this, and what I've been doing here is I just would take each one of these dividers, and I take the next one and I glue it together at the very top, just at the very top. And you do that kind of making like an accordion. So I'll show you here. So I've already glued all of this together, and it kind of makes like an accordion. Oops, that one's sticking together. Like that. So what happens is when you make your box and you put this in the box as the middle of the box, and then you put things in it, if you have like one section, like say your purple, it's not as full, but you have more in your blue, it can the box can kind of adjust for that. So it's, if you actually glue them down, like the entire thing down together, which is what I started doing, I glued the whole thing down, and then the box gets really tight. So I can show you here. When I first started doing the box, I glued this one down completely to the red one, and so it's very tight there at the front of the box. You can see how tight this is up here. Where this part over here is much looser, you can really get your hands down in there, because all of these were only attached at the top. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and attach the rest of these here. And I'm just going to use, you could use like liquid glue or you could use your ATG gun. I'm just going to use my ATG and I'm going to just put some tape along the edge here all the way down. And then you take your next tab and you want to make sure that you have it correct there. So it's going to go like this because you want to make sure that that's the next one. I'm just going to open it up because it makes it a little bit easier, and I'm going to line it up here. And then there, and then press it down. Okay, and then we'll do our last one here. Okay, I hope y'all are doing something fun today. It's been really quiet here. I haven't been going anywhere. I've been staying home. And the only person I've been seeing is my mom. But I have been visiting with some friends. We've been getting together using an online meeting system and doing some virtual crops. And that's been really fun because we've been getting to visit and do some scrapbooking together, even though we were not able to meet in person. So it's been really nice. Okay, so now we have this. And this is sticking together a little bit. I think that when I did the box the first time, I used the liquid glue, and then this time I'm using the ATG gun, and I got a little bit of extra adhesive along the edge of here. So I probably need to clean that up just to try to keep it from sticking together right there. I could probably just rub my fingers over it and get rid of it. But okay, so that's what we have. We have that, and you have that all finished. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a couple of sheets of cardstock and build the base for the box. And I'm going to make the base 11.5, and you're not going to really be able to tell that you didn't make it. You can make it 12.5, but then you have to do more steps and you have to add more cardstock. I'm just going to take 2 sheets of this cardstock and I'm going to glue it together this way. And that's going to give me enough to make a box that will come up on the sides. So we're going to just glue this together, and I'm going to use some liquid glue. I'm trying to remember exactly how I did this before. It's kind of hard because I haven't done this enough to really, know all the steps. And I just had a blooper where I did it backwards or the wrong way, so I had to start over. But that happened, so instead of gluing it this way, I glued it the short sides together, and that was totally wrong. It was not going to work. Okay, so we have our paper glued together, and the reason why I put glue on both pieces of paper is because then I don't have to worry about the edge. If you glue both edges and then you put them together, then you'll be sure that it's going to be, glued all the way on the edge on both sides. So now we have this, which is it's 11.5 inches wide, which is not wide enough, and you could actually add more cardstock and make it 12.5 inches, but I don't think you really need to do that, and I did not do it for my other box. So what we're going to do is we're going to score this, and then we're going to glue this to the front of the first tab and to the back of the last tab, and let's go ahead and score it first. And you're going to score this depending on how big you want your box. And I'm going to make my box 2 7/8 inch tall, which is how tall these dividers are. And then I'm thinking that I wanted it to be 6 inches, or 5 3/4 inches, but it could be longer. How big would that be if I did just on either side? That'd be pretty big, be like 10 inches. Maybe I should make it 8 inches. So if I made it 8 inches, I want the box itself to be 8 inches. So if I went over to 10 and subtracted 1/8 of an inch, that should be 8 inches, I think, or about. I'll make it that big. And then all I need to do is just to cut this to 2 7/8 inch so that I have 2 7/8 inch on each side. So let me get my paper trimmer. You can really make this box any size you want, and it doesn't really matter, you know, it's really up to you how big you want to make it. I just wanted to make it a little bit bigger than I did when I first made the first box. And I'm going to put this on 2 7/8 inch and trim that off. Okay. So this is the base of our box. And I don't know if there's other ways to build boxes. This is just kind of my way to do it. What I basically will do is build the base, which is the front, the bottom, and the back. And then I will add the sides and kind of build some structure around it. So it's going to start off like this, which is just kind of like a U. And then we're going to take our divider tabs and put those in here like this. And we're just going to glue the top of the first one to the top of the box. And then we'll glue the top of the last one to the other side of the box. And so this is going to give us a lot more room in the box compared to the original box that I first built. This box is only 4 inches wide, and so it's a little bit small. And I thought since I was going to rebuild it, I would try a bigger size. So I think maybe this might work really well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some glue on the edge here and just glue the top. You don't really want to glue the entire divider to the box because you'll lose the movement that it gives you and the flexibility to put more into that first and last tab. So I'm just going to go ahead and line that up and just glue that together like that. And I like to use the liquid glue for this part because you really do want that to be, you know, a fairly strong edge. Okay, so now we're going to go over here and I'm just going to do the same thing to the back here. And I'll just add some glue. And you can see here why we don't really need to worry about it's not 12.5 inches tall, or I'm sorry, 12.5 inches wide, because we're going to be wrapping the box, and so you're not going to be able to tell that this part of the box, which is the base of the box, is not 12.5 inches wide. Okay, so we're just going to glue that together there. Okay, so then we end up with this. Okay, so let's go ahead and make the sides. And what we need to make the sides is we need a strip of paper that's 2 7/8 inch tall by however long we can make it. I'm just going to take another piece of cardstock here and cut some strips that are 2 7/8 inch long. And I sure hope that this is making sense to you guys. I'm kind of struggling a little bit to explain exactly, you know, how to put this together. So I'm hoping I'm doing an okay job with it. Okay, so I wanted to speed this up a little bit because it was taking me quite a bit of time to build this box. So I'm going to speed up the video and do a little bit of a voiceover for the remainder of this video. So I just went ahead and cut up these strips, and I'm going to glue them together and just make a longer strip so that I can use these pieces to wrap around the sides of the box. And I'm going to take and try to figure out like where to put the score lines. You don't have to put score lines, but it does make it much easier to fold the paper around the box if you do score the paper first. So I'm going to go ahead here, and what I ended up doing was I put that joined mark at the middle of my box, and then I just went out 3.5 inches from either side. So my box is 7 inches, and I'm just scoring so that I have a 7-inch section there in the middle so that I can wrap that around the sides of the box. And what I'll do here is just go ahead and glue all that down to the sides. And I do wish that I would have made my base 12.5 inches long, because it would have definitely made a difference in how sturdy the box was and how easy it was to glue this together. When I made the smaller box, it didn't seem like it made that much of a difference, but I guess making this bigger, it just really needed that extra support. So if you're going to make a larger box, I would definitely recommend putting the 12.5 or making your paper 12.5 inches by adding additional cardstock, so that you have that support on the entire side of the box, the front and the back of the box. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and I finished gluing this together, and you can see here what I'm talking about as far as not having that paper going all the way across. It does kind of, you know, leave a little bit of a gap there at the bottom. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut strips that are 7 inches wide so that I can fit it into the box. And I want it to slide down into the box. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim off about 1/8 of an inch, and so that I can make sure that I can fit it into the box. It might have been 1/16 of an inch. You just want to trim off just enough so that you can slide it into the box. And what we're going to do is score this, and I'm going to make a score line at 2 7/8 inch, which is how tall my box is. And I'm going to also then make another score line here at 2 7/8 inch. So I'm going to put it into the box and wrap it around the side and then glue it down to the bottom. So you can see there how that's going to work. So I'm going to do that on both sides. And you could make this box any size that you would like. This is just the size that I wanted to do because I want to put this box into the bottom drawer of my Alex drawer unit. And it's the 6th drawer unit from IKEA. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue everything down here. And this actually takes quite a bit of time to do, but I think in the end I really love how it came out. And I do wish though that I would have made that 12.5 inches, but if I was to make this box again, I would definitely do that. Okay, so I'm going to make some additional strips, both the 2 7/8 inch and also the 7 inch wide, and I'm going to wrap the box again just like I did. So you can wrap the box as many times as you'd like, and each time you do this, it will make the box sturdier. And so I think I did wrap my box twice. There's probably lots of different ways to build boxes, and I'd be interested in hearing from you if you built a box, if you did it the same way or differently, if you want to leave me a comment on this video. So I think it's a really fun process to create your own storage. And this box was fairly inexpensive to make. It was, I think I used about 30 sheets of cardstock, and the cardstock I used was from Sam's Club, and it's a Nina cardstock. It's a very lightweight one, and it was $8.35 for 275 sheets. I did use about 30 sheets, including the box and the folders that I made, which made this box about 90 cents. Now I also used the dividers, and I had those in my office already, so that was something I didn't have to purchase. And I was kind of surprised at how pricey that was when I went to look at it at Office Depot and Amazon. So that part of the box would actually cost about $5 or $6 depending on where you get it. And so with the tab dividers, if you purchase those and you don't have those on hand, the box would be about $6 or $7, but still not too bad for your own custom box. So if you didn't want to purchase the dividers, you could just use cardstock instead, and that would make the box even cheaper because then it would be around $1.25. Okay, so also if you want to, you can wrap the box with some decorative paper, and that would make it look a little bit better, but since I'm going to be putting this into a drawer, it didn't really matter to me, but I'm just going to show you here how I went ahead and decorated this box using some really old paper that I had in my stash. Now this is very thin paper, and so it does kind of show some of the bumps and things underneath from where the cardstock is joining, and I think if you used a heavier weight paper it would probably look a lot better. But I'm just going to go ahead and do this with this kind of thinner paper because I'm just going to be putting this in my drawer, and it doesn't really matter if it looks okay or not. So I'm using the same technique that I used to build the box to wrap it with this decorative paper. And I picked this particular paper because I knew that I would have to have some places where you would see the paper overlap, and I thought that this stripe paper would kind of have a cool, effect once I got the box all wrapped. The paper is only 12 by 12 and the box is 12.5, so you're going to have a join somewhere, and I decided that I would just go ahead and join it together around the side. So I'm going to cover the bottom and both the front and the back of the box, and then I'm going to wrap some pieces around the sides. And I thought that it came out okay. I think if I was to do this again where I was going to want the box to look a little bit better, I would definitely use a heavier weight pattern paper. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to be sharing with you in this video is how to make the little folders that I'm going to be putting into the box. And those are fairly easy to make, and you just use cardstock. And I think I made about, I don't know if it was about 12 or 15 folders. You can make as many folders as you'd like. And here I'm just going to go ahead and kind of check to see what those folders that I had already made look like in my new box. And they were definitely too tall because my box that I made here was shorter. Okay, so I had already started the process of creating these folders, and I want to mention here that I did start off creating these at 6 inches wide, but later I'm going to go back and cut them down 1/8 of an inch. I started with an 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock. I trimmed it to 6 inches, and then I took the extra piece and I glued it onto the end. And now I'm just going to trim it down to 6 by 12 and 1/4 inch. And so that's how big I wanted my folders to be. You can make your folders any size you'd like. And then here I'm showing you that when you fold this, you don't want to fold it in half. You do want to leave space there at the top so that when you fold it, you have that edge there at the top. And I'm going to be adding some washi tape. So I did score this at 2 7/8 inch. And the final measurement for my folder is actually going to be 5 7/8 inches wide by 12 1/4 inches long, and the score is at 2 7/8 inches. And I didn't realize it when I was creating this, but when I made my box shorter, my tab was too tall, and so I just trimmed off 1/8 of an inch. So I wanted to mention here that I am alternating how I score this. So for each of the folders, I would score it with the folded strip on the top, and then I would turn the next one upside down and score it with the folded strip on the bottom. And that way that folded strip, or the part where it overlaps, will end up at the left or the right side of the folder, and that way you don't have so much bulk, and you can have that folded strip either at the right or the left side. So half of my folders have it at the right, half of them have it at the left. So hopefully that made sense, but it just keeps it from getting too bulky and having all of that extra cardstock on one side of your box or on the other side of the box. Okay, so now I'm just going to go ahead and take some washi in different colors and add it there to the top of the folder. And as I'm doing this, I'm just going to start kind of taking some of my border strips out and putting them into my new folders, and just trying to get an idea of how my new box is going to work. And that's pretty much all I have for how to create the box and how to create the folders. And if you have any questions about how I did anything in this video, please leave a comment below, and I will try to answer that within a day. I usually try to check my comments at least once every day. And that's it for this video. So hopefully I've explained this well enough that if you would like to make a box, you know how to do it. And that's all I have. So y'all take care and have an awesome day. And we'll see you next time. Bye now.